You know, this will never make the broadcast, but 15 years ago now it's 18 years ago when I started to do this kind of stuff. We're sitting here now and my face is on there and everybody else's face is on there. My name's at the bottom of my picture. 18 years ago, nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew where I was from. Nobody knew anything about me. There was a police escort to and from the judging area. If you stayed in a hotel, you were supposed to stay under an assumed name. I mean, it was absolutely. I have no idea where that came from, that they couldn't know who we were. But, and to this day, I don't think, unless it changed in the last 2 years since I retired, to this day, you don't announce yourself when you judge.
No.
John.
No, wait. Who the hell do you think it is? It's me.
Wait. Who has the record for most times being told not to say his name on the beginning of the tape?
You,
Bob.
this is Bob Rayet judging.
Don't.
I will say that it was the best kept secret in Philadelphia. Is who judged the Mummers Parade.
Back in the day, nobody knew who we were. There was no videos or anything like this. We were all very incognito when we judged, and it was a very private thing. I want to take that comment and marry it to tape night, and now take you a lot of miles away from Philadelphia to the city of New Orleans. And a lot of the bands go down and parade for Mardi Gras in New Orleans. And a couple of them have come over after the Crew of Tux parade to the big party. I happen to belong to Crew of Tux, and they'd come over to the party, and I'd strike up a conversation. Of course, they didn't know who I was. I was some guy from New Orleans, but I struck up a conversation. Can't remember the name of the band. And after a while, there were 3 or 4 of them there, and we were just having a conversation. I said, well, of course, you don't know who I am. They said, oh, yeah, we know exactly who you are. You were visual judge number 1 on the, whatever. And they say, we know who you are. And I said, from The Voice? They say, oh, yeah, hell, we've listened to it.
Oh, no, Tom has a Wawa story very similar to that.
Over the years, I have been stopped several times by people, in particular at Wawa's. I don't know why. Going, man, your voice is so familiar. And they're wearing their club jackets. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Have a great day.
Because at one time, we were much more stringent about it. There was to be no contact between a band and a judge. Jack can bear that one out.
And that rule's still there. I mean, it hasn't gone away.
But I don't think I don't stay under an assumed name at a hotel anymore, which I had to do when I started.
Which will transition into the next topic that I wanted to touch on, that I thought everybody would enjoy, especially from the fan standpoint, is part of the reason why that line has evaporated to a certain extent is every one of you have been nice enough to come down and spend a Sunday, usually in the month of February, and we've had these clinics for the string bands, where we get all the design teams together, and you all have done various years, if not one at least, and the experience of actually teaching these groups, and just your experiences with. I think this year we had some great give and take, one-on-one give and take with judges that we. Instead of it being so formatted, we allowed just a conversation to happen. Afterwards, we've had these organic discussions. Bob, you want to speak to some of the discussions you had this year?
I had a great time, because I think I had more questions for the designers than what they had questions for me. Which was great. Wanted to know like what their process was, like how do they organize, like how do they chart things, like how do they know what their storyboard looks like. So it was really exciting for me to be able to have those different discussions with the different groups, because everyone does it a little bit differently. And, so as a designer myself, I love hearing about how other people's process, happens. But then it's also good, like when they come up and said, hey, you said this on your commentary, like, what did you mean? And you explain what you mean. You explain it, in terms where they understand. And, I just love that dialogue. I wish and I know we recorded, but I wish we could almost do that dialogue right afterwards, because you're on such a high, even after the freezing day, and you think about it for a second, it's still such a great experience for everyone. I just love that feeling.
I was part of that discussion, and I remember two things that were done that day. We talked a lot about the use of the captains in the development of the program, and we spoke about how to pace the ending of the program so that they would get better impacts. And the next year, I actually think I saw a big change in how some of those captains programs were choreographed, and the endings of the programs were all very clear in that parade the next year. So I thought that they were really beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, Judy, I remember, because we had this discussion, is that, because they had that 4.5 minute timeline, sometimes they rush the end, and we never get to really appreciate what they're doing, because the next thing you know, they're turning and going off into the parade.
Right.
And they can't allow themselves to stand there and get the applause that the audience wants to do, because they have so much to clean up, and they're trying to pack so much information that 4.5 minutes. So yeah, I remember that discussion very well.
Along with Gary Ulrich, I was privileged to do the very, very first clinic we ever had. It was the first one that that they ever got to meet and see the judges in a room. And one of the things that we did, Gary and I orchestrated a little vignette, and they wanted to know about our comment about transitions, bad transitions, and distracted transitions. So in the middle of my talking to them, I had Gary played the part. He got up in the middle of my talking and didn't say a word, but he ran out the door and expected every person in the room stopped looking at me and looked at Gary running out the door.
Brilliant.
And I became very indignant at the end of it, and I said, "What in the hell are you looking at this guy for? He just ran out the door. He didn't anything, and I'm here, and I'm giving my time for you guys, and whatever." And then I said, "And now you know what a bad transition is. You're distracting me from looking at what you want me to look at by creating so much motion somewhere else in the show that my eyes go to that motion instead of what you want me to be focused on." And I tell you, I think that thing went on for another 2 hours after that, with everybody talking about what that meant and what that meant to them, and how they could fix it, and what are other ways they could do it. And exactly like Judy just said, by the very next year, the transitional issues were half or 2/3 less than what they were before. Everybody kind of got it, and it was just because Gary was willing to play along with the little game.
And also what Bobby and Judy got to talk with them about at the last clinic, I think we saw that reveal itself this past year. It just, the end, a lot of times in years past, they just sort of stopped playing. There really wasn't an ending. And I think Judy and Bobby's comments have led them to think about that and work backwards to how we got to get into that. What do we want the ending to accomplish? And the same thing about the little skit that Larry and I did has caused them to rethink how people and segments come in and out. And the major part of that for me was the opportunities when I had the judge captains, where the captain would do a great thing. And now how are they going to get him off the stage, him or her off the stage, and not bury the rest of the show because we're watching the captain exit down the side? And that has improved drastically. So I think from all of our perspectives, mine in particular, watching the growth and seeing the bands improve and pay attention to things that in some respects for us, because of years doing other activities, is kind of a given and we know what to do or not to do. They have learned and grown, and the programs have developed beautifully as a result of that. And I think that's a great honor for us to be able to be part of that.
At least from what we thought of, this was something that was a bit of a risk because of that judging secrecy thing, and we just didn't know how the bands would react, because they're not. We don't make any bones about it. We compete to compete, and there's a lot of emotion involved. It is a Super Bowl for lack of a better term. But the fact that we were able to put them in the same room and just the reaction between both the bands and, I think the first years when we were doing that was something that we were kind of very wary about, making sure everybody was on their best behavior, and they really were. I think if there's one thing, if there's a next step to any of this with the string bands, is we ask for your resumes and your bios of all the things that you've done in your careers, so that we can share that with our group, which is a committee of about 10 folks, so that they know who's judging them and why we not put you basically in nomination, for lack of a better term, the best at what the job is that we need you to do. You add this on there, add that you judge the Mummers Parade. I think Bobby, you might have had that on your Drum Corps Hall of Fame bio, and I was like, wow, how about that?
The people who have that on now, there's been enough of the judges that are seasoned judges and have been around a while, that either have judged the Mummers or know people who have judged the Mummers who have bitten their ear off for an hour or two telling about this wonderful thing. And if somebody has that on their resume, it is something special, because if you haven't done it, you have no idea. It's one of those things that you can talk about it for 15 minutes and you can talk about it for 15 hours, but unless you sit there and see it, you have no idea.
The amount of conspiracy theories as far as the judging with the string band division is, if anything, just pulling this curtain back is huge for us, because of that fact that there's names and faces, and get to that there's really some human beings behind those recorders and those numbers.
I think one of the coolest things about the day now, which is a little bit different from when I first started, but the mixture of the groups. I love the fact that we don't have a numeric order. This group finished last year, this group finished first, so that's the order that they're going to go on. The best band might be the first group that comes on. And you have to be ready to put that number down, and so on and so on. And that's, one of the really awesome things about the day, because you're just entertained from, the step off to, the time you go back.
Yeah, and we don't get that opportunity in all the other areas that we judge. So that's really unique, and it seems to be pretty consistent from year to year that the order is, I don't know how it's determined, but Bobby's right that the first or second group could come on, and we have to go from there and adjust and prepare.